Okay, so in this video we're gonna talk about A Game of Thrones by George R. Martin. I've made a review on the book, but I forgot a couple of things, and I will mention them here. So in A Game of Thrones, unfortunately, Dany's chapters suffer tremendously because of the Dothraki. And I'm gonna say this: I cannot stand the Dothraki. The Dothraki are trash, and they belong to the streets. Every time they are on the page, and I have to read about them, I'm just right. I can't stand them for obvious reasons. And listen, Miri Mazdur, she is a hero. Okay, she is the goat. Okay, and this is why I love uh, this game of this Song of Ice and Fire, because no matter what happens, everybody will get what they deserve in the end in some form or another. Okay, so there seems to be an actual karma going on here, right? Because I can understand that maybe some readers and some viewers might look at Carl Drogo as, he was a bit rough around the edges and he treated Danny a bit weird, especially in the show. But then, they become a strong power couple, yada yada, right? But Carl Drogo and the Dothraki, they go around, they conquer other people that are peaceful, they mind their own business, they go around, they kill for no reason, they enslave people, right? They use people as commodities, whatever, like they use their horses, right? And they go and they trash Miri Mazdur's village, destroys her church, whatever, and they do what they do to her people. And then, because of Danny's naivete, Miri Mazdur has the opportunity not only to destroy Khal Drogo, but to destroy his unborn child, right? And I have to say, I applaud her for doing what she has done. She is a hero. This is undeniable. This is fact, okay? Because we might be sympathetic for the Dothraki and even more for what happens to Khal Drogo because of Danny, because Danny cares about him and so forth. But when you really look at what he has done objectively, he is a horrible person, right? He is a horrible person, and the Dothraki are no better, no different than any other slave master or whatever in the free cities. There are absolutely no different, right? And it's unfortunate for Danny because she loses her child. Her child is a stillborn, looks like some sort of mutated dragon thing, whatever. But the prophecy was that her kid, Rhaegal, I think, he was supposed to be the stallion that mounts the world, right? Which sounds like a merciless dictator to me, right? So yet again, from my standpoint, Miri Mazdur did a lot of good. She saved a lot of lives. Uh, she's Gucci, okay? She is Gucci, and she does not get the love that she deserves from most fans because, of course, she is responsible for the death Daenerys' child, and Daenerys had to suffocate Carl Drogo, and yeah. But you have to be objective. Objective. Okay, the Dothraki were trash and their fucking horse culture, right? And they were terrible people and they got what they deserved. Okay? Period. Now on to Viserys, Daenerys' older brother. Now, just like Theon Greyjoy, I understand where Viserys is coming from. I sympathize with him, but I don't forgive what he does. But I sympathize. All his life, he has been taunted and laughed at and called the beggar prince or the beggar king. He had to sell his mother's crown, yada yada. And I think all of that taunting and teasing and belittling and demeaning, I think pretty much it made him half crazy. It makes sense to me. Like he went bananas because wherever he went, he was laughed at, made fun of, and then he had to run away because Robert's assassins were, one step away. So I understand why Viserys became what he became and why he was so impatient and why he treated Dany so, let's call it viciously, right? But in Viserys's case, I mean, even though I like the guy, I mean, we have to say it how it is. He was a little bitch, just like Joffrey. I mean, every time he twisted Daenerys's nipples and what have you, I was like just shaking my head. I mean, this guy proclaims that he is the dragon, he is the rightful king, and he does this stupid bullying bullshit. This is some Joffrey shit. Okay, Viserys was on some Joffrey shit with the twisting of the nipples and the bullying of his sister, and yeah, in the end, he got his golden crown, and yeah, it was a sight. It was a sad sight. I would have liked to see more of him. I would have liked to see him improve, what have you. But it is what it is. Unfortunately, and this shows that the Targaryens aren't immune to fire, right? And even Dany, when she hatches the dragons, I mean, in the book, from what I understand, her hair is completely burnt, right? So she is bald, and it takes time for it to grow again. But in the show, right, her hair is completely unharmed, right? So the Targaryens aren't immune to fire, okay? Now let's talk about Jaime. Jaime in the book so far, I've read A Game of Thrones and A Clash of Kings. Jaime is lackluster because he isn't so prominent in the books so far. And in the show, I mean, all of the actors did a great job in making the characters come to life. All of the characters stand out, the main cast, right? But I have a problem how everybody in this series treat Jaime as if he is scum. Right? I hate it when they call him Kingslayer, as if it is an insult, as if it's the worst thing ever. Like, you got murderer, you got kinslayer, you got a rapist, thief, and so on. Oathbreaker, and then you have Kingslayer, the ultimate taboo, right? And it doesn't make sense to me because these people don't operate under the guise of logic. They are not objective to what, and they are not fair to what Jaime has achieved, what he has accomplished. Listen, because Jaime killed the Mad King, I don't care if he did it from the back or the front, or if he put the sword up his ass, I don't care, right? the fact remains, just like with Miri Mazdur, Jaime, by killing the Mad King, he saved a lot of lives. And I mean, he not only saved King's Landing, which Ares wanted to burn the whole place down, but you think that Ares would have stopped there? I think Ares would have continued to burn everything everywhere, because madness is what it is, right? So Jaime saved, I mean, probably tens, if not hundreds of thousands of lives by getting rid of the Mad King, and everybody shames him for it, and I just don't get it. It upsets me. Like, they all look down on him. They all call him Kingslayer as if he did such a fucking horrible thing. Everybody that calls him Kingslayer to his face, they owe their lives to him. Okay? So, it, regardless if you hate or love him, of course he pushed Bran down the tower, yada yada, but he saved a lot of lives, and everybody that is alive today in this book series, they owe their lives to Jaime Lannister. It is what it is, right? You gotta be objective. Another thing that I have to mention, and it really caught me off guard, and that is the relationship between Ned and Jon Snow. Now, in the book, there is this scene right before Jon joins the Night's Watch. He and Jon have a little talk, and Ned tells him that when we meet again, we'll talk about your mother, and it is, it is heartwarming, it is wholesome, yada yada. But in the book, this never happens, and I. I've watched a lot of theory videos, Order of the Green Hand, Quinn's Ideas, Secrets of the Citadel, whatever. But I haven't seen a video where somebody mentions, nobody mentions that in A Game of Thrones, the novel, Ned Stark and Jon Snow basically have no interaction. They have no dialogue whatsoever, except in the beginning when they find the direwolves. That is the only, from what I remember, now correct me if I'm wrong, but that is the only moment when Jon and Ned actually speak to one another, right? It is because of Jon that Ned decides to keep the direwolves. And that is basically it, right? They have no interaction. They have no dialogue after that. And this is a big ass book, right? Which seems odd to me because even though Ned is a cold, even a detached person, from what we understand, he has risked a lot for Jon Snow, for obvious reasons. We all have watched the show. But he is a bit too at a distance, right? And why would that be? Is he trying to maintain the appearance that Jon is his bastard, and that is why he keeps him on a leash, right? Because Jon even has an interaction or two with Catelyn, who despises him, but not with his father, alleged father, Ned Stark, right? Now, the scene where Dany hatches her dragons. What really happened there? She goes into the fire. Drogo is burning. She brings her eggs with her into the fire. And Miri Mazdur is burning as well. Now, what really happened here? What were the ingredients that led to the dragons hatching? Because there has to be some sort of magic going on here. So is it because Drogo was a sacrifice, as well as her child, which had dragon features, right? She lost her husband and her child. But then, of course, Miri Mazdur is there, and she is burning, and we know she's a magi, so she has magical abilities. and she dies, so she is also a sacrifice. So are all of these sacrifices ingredients which assist in Dany hatching the eggs? Because it seems to me that this is the case, because we know, especially in a Clash of Kings, everything revolving around Dany is it comes in threes, right? So she lost her husband, she lost her child, and then she killed the person responsible. So again, we have three sacrifices, one of which one of which had magical abilities, Midi Masdur, and then her child had dragon features. So that seems to be logical to me, that there had to be some sort of blood sacrifice involved and magic for her dragons to hatch. It wasn't just because Dany was there, right? And also in the flames, she had this vision of Khal Drogo, uh, with his whip, and every time he flung his whip, the a dragon, an egg cracked, and then the other, and then the other, and they cracked because the vision of Drogo flung his whip at the eggs. That's why the eggs hatched, apparently, right? And another thing that I want to touch upon is that, listen, I've watched the video, titled, "Why Catelyn Sucks" by Order of the Green Hand. It's a series, and it makes sense. But what I want to ask is Caitlyn crazy? Okay, we know that Lysa, her sister, she's just crazy, right? We know this, and her son Robin, she's he is also crazy, right? So, and their father Hoster Tully, he seems to have some sort of disease as well, right? So there seems to be some sort of illness or a batch of illnesses in the Tully family, right? One of which is, of course, madness or craziness, right? So Lysa seems to be this outspoken crazy. She is very out in the open with her crazy. But Caitlyn seems to be a bit more of an introverted crazy, right? She is more, her crazy comes out once in a while Lysa is out with it all the time, right? Because remember, when Master Lewin brings the letter that announces that Jon Arryn was killed by Cersei, probably, she just leaps out of bed naked, makes a fire, and burns the letter right in front of Master Lewin, and Ned is shocked by this. Ned is shocked that she just walking around naked and making a fire, right? So this seems pretty legit. It seems to me like Catelyn has some sort of crazy in her, no doubt, right? And another thing with Caitlyn, you know, Order of the Green Hand, they say that there was something going on with the letter from Lysa that was brought by Master Lewin. Apparently, it was written in some sort of code that only Caitlyn could read. And in that letter, Lysa said that Jon Arryn was poisoned. But Caitlyn just jumps out of bed naked, makes a fire, and burns the letter without showing it to Ned. And Order of the Green Hand say that maybe the letter wasn't about Jon Arryn's poisoning, that it was something else, right? But Caitlyn, in her monologues, mentions again and again the letter, and she says, yeah, it was basically about Jon Arryn's poisoning, about his murder. So this theory seems to be not true, because she keeps on mentioning the letter in which John Aaron's murder is mentioned, right? So that theory, to me, it fails flat. It falls flat, right? Another thing, Syrio Forel, he protects Arya so she can escape, and she has to fight all of these knights. And in the show, some people make the argument that you can hear a metal sword falling on the floor, which would imply that Syrio Forel actually defeated the knight with his wooden sword. Right? In the show, you can hear a metal sword dropping, and Syrio Forel had a wooden sword, which implies that he not only defeated the knight, but he escaped. Right? And there is this theory that Syrio might be a faceless man, he might be Jaqen H'ghar. But in the book, listen, in the book A Game of Thrones, there is a scene with Joffrey and Cersei and others. They're talking about using Sansa as a bargaining chip, but they also Joffrey mentions that Arya escaped because of that Syrio Forel. Now, nobody was there, right, when this happened. None of them were there. So how would they know that Arya escaped because of Syrio Forel? It implies that the knight actually killed Syrio Forel, because otherwise the small council would not know that Syrio Forel helped Arya. So it implies, and I think this is a strong piece of evidence, that Syrio Forel actually died, because otherwise they would know. So it means that the knight, I forgot his name, actually defeated Forel, and then he told the small council. So yet again, this theory falls flat yet again. It seems to me that Syrio Forel was defeated, given the evidence, okay? And I have to mention this again. When it comes to Lyanna's kidnapping, we hear that Brendan Stark, he was on his way to Riverrun when he heard the news that Lyanna was kidnapped by by Rhaegar. Now my question is, who is the one, or who are the people that keep on spreading this gossip that Lyanna was kidnapped by Rhaegar? Who was there in person to see this kidnapping happen? Because this is not mentioned anywhere so far. So this is a mystery. But who is going around claiming that Lyanna Stark was kidnapped by Rhaegar and she was raped and so forth? Right? Who is the key witness, or the key witnesses that were present when this happened, and why were they left alive to spread this news? Right? This seems a very important aspect of this mystery, because nobody's ever mentioned. Everybody seemingly accepts the fact that Rhaegar kidnapped her and did what he did, and not a single piece of evidence is provided, right? And then Ned goes to the Tower of Joy. He has a fight with Arthur Dane and Hightower, and I forget who else. And apparently he defeats him. And then he goes to the Tower of Joy, and then he finds Lyanna on her bed of blood. And apparently there were some promises made, secrets to be kept. So plural, okay, plural. Ned had to keep a lot of secrets and a lot of promises, not just one, right? And you can see the moment Ned goes to King's Landing as the Hand of the King, you really find out and see just how tired and exhausted he is about everything. I said it in my review. Ned Stark seems extremely withered. He seems done with life, with everything else, and I think this is because he has kept all of these secrets from all of his loved ones, from his family, children, friends, and even from Robert Baratheon. And I think ate had him over the years, and he was just done. He was just exhausted beyond belief, right? So there something about Ned just doesn't make any sense, right? There is something. There is a key secret or a promise that we don't really know, but it will have a big impact on the story and how we see Ned specifically. Because this is not just about, keeping the secret that Jon Snow is actually Rhaegar's rightful heir to the Iron Throne, and he had to keep him a secret from Robert, or he would get killed, right? There's something going on here that is vaguely implied from Ned himself, his mannerisms, and the way he acts, that tells me that there's a bigger secret here that we don't know of that just destroyed him, right? And we find out that all of this started was because Stannis was the one who actually came up with the idea that maybe Joffrey and the rest of the children are not Robert's actual biological children. And he told Jon Arryn, and Jon Arryn began investigating, which led to his death. So, you know, all of in my video, I said that all of this happened was because Robert Baratheon named Ned as his hand. But now, after reading A Clash of Kings, it is actually Stannis' fault that all of this happened because he told Jon Arryn. Jon Arryn investigated. He died, killed by Cersei, probably. And then Robert went to Winterfell. He named Ned as Hand of the King. They went back. Robert died. Then Ned got executed. And then, of course, the War of the Five Kings erupted. So, objectively, it is Stannis' fault, right? What I love and what I hate at the same time about this series is, I think George somewhere mentioned that in his books, history doesn't repeat necessarily, but it most certainly rhymes, right? Which means that, things tend to repeat themselves, but the outcomes might be slightly different. And you can tell when you read about the lore. We have characters that might have similar names to our current protagonists, and they did similar things to what have happened, recently in the story, but they were a bit different. You know, a good example would be, I forgot his name, Bard, the Bard, and he went to Winterfell and he played his harp, and then the king of the north, he wanted to give him a gift, and the Bard, asked for, the blue rose, and then he kidnapped the daughter, right, and then had a child in the crypts and so forth, which has some sort of resemblance to Lyanna Stark's kidnapping, because she was referred to as, the she was associated with the Blue Rose of Winterfell and she was kidnapped by Rhaegar, and she allegedly had a child. So there are similarities here, right? Which might be, little hints trying to tell us what really happened, because some theories say that Lyanna wasn't really kidnapped. She was also hanging around in the crypts, but then, allegedly she was at the Tower of Joy, the Blue Rose, she had a child, the Bed of Blood, etc., etc., right? So there are a lot of secrets. Now, with this series, A Song of Ice and Fire, you know, by comparison, whatever happens in the present, in the current timeline, the War of the Five Kings, what have you, it seems to me that while all of this is happening, in the forefront, in the limelight, things way more important are happening in the background. And what do I mean by this? Uh, you had Varys and Littlefinger and Bloodraven and others scheming. Quaithe, they're scheming in the background. They seem to be bigger puppet masters in the background, right? But at the same time, there's even something bigger happening in the background than this, which means that we have, uh, you know, there may be the children of the forest might be implicated in all of this turmoil, right? And magical forces, right? So whatever happens right now as we read it in the books, we have to understand that way more important things have happened in the past, and all of those characters in the past might be still scheming in the shadows now. A good example would be Bloodraven, right? And others, right? So there's this conspiracy, and then there's even a bigger conspiracy in the background that might imply all sorts of dark magical forces, right? So Varys, Littlefinger, and those like them, they are not actually the ones in control, right? So what happened in the past not only is still alive right now, and it is affecting the present, right? There are consequences for the past. And it seems to me that the past, what happened in the past, and all the people in the past that are important seem to be still kicking around and manipulating behind the scenes. Bloodraven, the three-eyed crow, the three-eyed raven, Arthur Dane, and so on. Something is, and the Great Other, and the Whites, and what the werewood trees. Something is happening, right? Something is happening, and a good example to prove this would be Daenerys. It seems that in Daenerys's case specifically, there are forces and characters that are guiding her along, that are helping her, that are manipulating her on her course, right? That's what it seems to me, right? But that's about it, you know. I hope you enjoyed this video. See ya!